Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this one is against Annieg001. Let's get to it. C4, E5, Knight C3, Knight to F6. So this is a typical English defense. I'm controlling the center here. I am maybe pushing for Knight F3, D4. Maybe I'm going for G3. I don't know. So I decide to play Knight F3, attack the pawn. So black could play E4 here, and after Knight G5, I think the move is C6, but I don't know why people play this move. I don't think this is even a good line for black. So most people play Knight to C6, some people play D6, but Knight to C6 happened, E3. So E3 is just intending D4, keeping my options open. And after bishop to C5, I remember thinking, was D4 the right move or was knight takes E5 the right move? And I said, I think it was the latter, the second, not the second either, the center fork trick. So the center fork trick is you take on E5, you push D4, you threaten the two pieces, and you're having fun. So here, one of these pieces is going to go, queen to E7, or knight to C6, or bishop takes D4. So our friend Annie G played takes D4. I took with the pawn, knight C6. I pushed, knight to E7 happened. Now I think knight to E5 still works and is probably the best move, but knight to E7, bishop to D3, and what I'm doing with bishop to D3 is just developing, but I actually had a much better move here. And to be honest, I was in a simul, so of course I didn't see it because it takes some time to see things sometimes. And the move here is D6, because after pawn takes D6, I can probably play a move like knight to B5 and go for the pawn that way. Or I can play bishop to G5. I'm in no rush to take this pawn. It's a pawn that actually prevents black from really developing. So black in this case really wants to play D6, and what I should have done is I should have made the prophylactic move to play D6 myself. Could have also played bishop to G5, right? So there were so many things I could have done better in this position. But I've played bishop D3, I just didn't even think about it. After D6, bishop to G5, so now I'm threatening to possibly take the pawn, create a series of double pawns. Knight E to G8, I don't know if that was the best move. I would probably consider the moves knight to G6 maybe. I would consider the moves knight to G4. But it's already a very hard position because I'm putting pressure on this diagonal, but at the same time this knight doesn't have that many attractive looking squares to go to. So after knight e to g8, I decide, wow, you're moving your knight there? I don't know if I like that. So castles, your bishop to f5, blunders a bishop, so our friend Annieg001 made a mistake. I gave our friend a chance, right? I said I'm going to play h3, and after bishop takes, queen d7, I check. The knight comes back to e7, and I get my chance now. Bam, bam, knight d4, a fork, and take the queen. So what did we learn in this game, right? Number one, don't play bishop c5, because the center fork trick is always going to be better for white. Now, although white might not get a material advantage of some sort, the center is going to be very powerful for white, just because the center fork trick takes away one of black's pawns. So knight takes d4. This was all okay, but here I could have played d6, and if knight e5 happened, I could have also played d6 if I wanted to, right? But here black would just castle. In the game, if I played d6, this would have been much better. The pawn takes, and black would have had to spend maybe 2 more moves or 3 more moves getting the bishop out, so it would have been better to play it this way, but I didn't. I played bishop d3, and I'm not sure if knight e to g8 was completely necessary, but our friend Annieg001 talked about how the double pawns are very annoying sometimes, and I really do agree, but I kind of feel like maybe you paid too much of a price putting your knight back there. It was out of the game. I was able to play rook check, and eventually I got the double pawn. So I guess it was, maybe not that great to move that knight to g8, but that was the game. So in our second game against Annieg001, I play the Owen's defense, and always one of my favorites, bishop g5 and e5. So at this point, I say I'm ready to take on g2. The rook is trapped, e takes f6, g takes f6, bishop to e4, a very good find. But unfortunately, bishop takes, knight takes, and pawn takes bishop. So now I am up 2 pawns, I think. So I'm up 2 pawns just because of that. Just because I took on g2 and just because I took on f6, right? So knight f3 just brought my pawn to d5. Knight c3, just bringing my pieces out now. Pushing g4 to try to bring the knight back, or if the knight comes here, I'd happily trade. So after c5, I bring my queen to c7, I play h5, I castle. After f3, I briefly considered the move f5, but I wanted to play bishop g5 to restrict the movement of this knight. Pawn takes, f5 now, queen to g3, and at this moment I said, I'm up material. I don't think it matters how I really play this out, but I'm going to trade. H takes, knight f6, bishop takes f4, so I'm trading everything because I know that I'm 2 pawns up. And so I use this advantage, push the pawn to h2, get the rook to h3, and after pawn takes d4, I bring my rook to a3, and all of a sudden the rook is very tied down to this passed pawn. Right? a5, pawn takes, and after knight takes h2, rook a2 and knight takes h2. So the rook is defending the knight, so that is the hard part. And now I trade, and our friend Annieg001 resigns. So how did that game end so quickly? Well, it's because of this move e5. And to be honest, although it looks like e5 doesn't end the game immediately, it basically gives black a 2-pawn advantage when going down this continuation, right? The bishop trades and we get the bishop and we still have 2 extra pawns. And so through these 2 extra pawns, I was able to smoothly convert, bring my pieces out, trade queens, trade pieces, push those passed pawns, and really sail my way to victory. And although you may think, well, you made it look so easy. And to be honest, it wasn't easy at all, because you have to really think about how to outwit your opponent. But the Owen's defense with the bishop long range to g2 always seems to trick people. Now, I'm not saying that it's a great opening or anything, because it is far from a great opening. It's a very tricky opening, but the people who play against it who have a very good system against it are going to do very well against it. However, you gotta be aware of the g2 pawn, and you gotta be aware of the bishop on b7 sometimes. It's very tricky, and so at times it may get annoying, but it's important that you have fun, show your curiosity, leapfrog over it, and find your way to victory. So I'll see you later, but have fun out there, and best of luck.